There are many myths and legends telling their story of what happens when there's an eclipse. This is the legend of the Khasi people in northeast India. There are many different versions, but this one was written down by Mrs. K.U. Rafy. My name is Jess, and this is the Yes Tales Story Channel. I'm here to tell you stories from all over the world, some famous, some forgotten. And when the story finishes, the sounds of nature keep playing, helping you fall into a soothing sleep. If you want to fall asleep to interesting stories from around the world, make sure you like and subscribe. But for now, make sure you're warm and snug. Clear your mind from any worries. Take a deep breath. Let's begin. Very early in the history of the world, a beautiful female child was born to a humble family who lived in a village on the borders of one of the great Khasi forests. Her parents called her Khanum, and she was such a beautiful girl that her mother constantly expressed her fears that some stranger passing that way might kidnap her or cast an evil eye upon her. She decided to bring her up in as much seclusion as their poor circumstances would allow, but her husband, the father, did not agree. He told his wife not to harbour such foolish notions, but to bring the child up naturally, like other people did, and teach her to work and make herself useful. So Khanum was brought up just like other children, and taught to work and to make herself useful. One day, as she was taking her pitcher to the well, a big tiger came out of the forest and carried her to his lair. Khanum was terribly frightened, for she knew that the tigers were the most cruel of all beasts. The name of this tiger was Ukla, and he had carried her off for the purpose of eating her. But when he saw how young and small she was, and that she wouldn't even be enough for one meal, he decided to keep her in his lair until she grew bigger. He took great care of her and brought home many delicacies which her parents had never been able to afford, and as she never suspected anything untoward from the tiger, she soon started to feel quite at home and content in the wild beast's den. And she grew up to be a maiden of unparalleled loveliness. The tiger, however, was only waiting for the right opportunity, and when he saw that she'd grown up, he decided to kill her. For he was so longing to eat the beautiful damsel who he had fed with such care. One day, as he busied himself about his lair, he began to mutter to himself, "The time has come when I can repay myself for all my trouble in feeding this human child. Tomorrow, I will invite all my fellow tigers, and we will feast on the maiden." But so it happened that a little mouse was foraging near the den right at that time, and she overheard the tiger muttering to himself. She was very sorry for the maiden, for she knew that she was alone and friendless and entirely at the mercy of the tiger. So the mouse decided to tell the maiden that the tigers were going to kill her and eat her on the following day. Khanum was in great distress and wept very bitterly. She begged the mouse to help her escape, and the mouse, who had a very tender heart, gave her the only help that she could. First, she told the girl to leave the den and find the cave of the magician, Uhinro, the giant toad and protector of the realm. He was a peevish and demanding monster from whom everyone recoiled, and Khanum would have been terrified to approach him under ordinary circumstances. But the peril which faced her gave her courage, and under the guidance of the mouse, she went to the toad's cave. When the toad saw her and witnessed how fair she was, and learned how she'd been the captive of his old rival, the tiger, he readily consented to give her his protection. So he dressed her in a toad skin, warning her not to take it off in the presence of others, or else she would die a gruesome death. This he did in order to keep the maiden in his own custody and to make her his slave. When the mouse saw that her beautiful friend had been transformed into the likeness of a hideous toad, she was very sad and regretted having sent her to seek the magician's protection, for she knew that as long as she remained in the jungle, Khanum would have to live with the toads and be their slave from now on. So she led her away secretly and brought her to a magic tree deep in the jungle, and told the girl to climb into the tree so that she would be transported to the sky, where she would be safe from harm forever. So the girl climbed into the magic tree and spoke the magic words taught to her by the mouse. "Grow tall, dear tree, the sky is near, expand and grow." Suddenly, the tree began to expand upwards till its branches touched the sky, and then the girl descended into the blue realm, and the tree immediately dwindled to its former size. By and by, the tiger and his friends arrived at the den, ravenous for their feast. But when he found that his prey had disappeared, his disappointment and anger knew no bounds and were terrible to witness. He uttered loud threats of vengeance on whoever had helped his captive escape, and his roars were so loud that the animals in the jungle trembled with fear. His fellow tigers also became enraged when they understood that they had been deprived of their feast, and in their fury they turned on Ukla and tore him to pieces. Meanwhile, Khanum wandered homeless in the blue realm, dressed in the toad skin. Everyone there lived in palaces and splendor, and they refused to admit the loathsome, venomous-looking toad into their homes. And she, mindful of the magician's warning, feared what would happen if she uncovered herself. At last, she appeared before the palace of Khasi, the sun, who, ever gracious and tender, took pity on her and permitted her to live in a small outhouse near the palace. One day, thinking herself to be unobserved, the girl put aside her toad skin and sat down to rest a while in her small room. But before she carefully wrapped herself in the skin again, she was accidentally seen by the son of Khasi, who was a very noble youth. He was astonished beyond words to find a girl of such rare beauty, hiding herself in a hideous toad skin and living in his mother's outhouse. And he pondered on what evil spell had caused her to assume such a loathsome covering. Her beauty enthralled him, and he fell deeply in love with her. He hurried to make his strange discovery known to his mother, and begged her to house the girl inside the palace and to let her become his wife. The son, having the experience and foresight of age, decided to wait before agreeing to the request of her young and impetuous son until she herself had ascertained whether a girl such as the one her son described really existed beneath the toad skin, or whether he had been deluded by some evil enchantment into imagining that he had seen a girl in the outhouse. So she set herself to watch the movements of the toad in the outhouse, and one day, to her surprise and satisfaction, she managed to catch a glimpse of the girl uncovered, and was astonished at her marvellous beauty. But she did not want her son to rush into an alliance with an enchanted maiden, so she ordered him not to go near or speak to the girl until the toad skin had been destroyed and the evil spell broken. Once again, the sun set herself to watch the movements of the toad, and one day her vigilance was rewarded when she discovered Kanam sleeping with the toad skin cast aside. The sun crept stealthily into the outhouse and seized the toad skin, and back in her own quarters she burnt it to ashes. Then she returned to the outhouse and waited for Kanam to wake. Kanam was shocked and terribly frightened when she woke up to see Khasi in her room. But the sun calmed her, and she soon realized that the spell was broken. From that day on, the girl appeared in her natural form and lived very happily as the wife of Khasi's son, released forever from the spell of the giant toad. The old toad, however, was not happy. The magician and the son had been feuding for a long time as she refused to pay him tribute. And when he learned that she had willfully destroyed the magic skin in which he had wrapped the maiden, his anger was rekindled. Furious, he climbed up to the blue realm to devour her. As the two arch-enemies met, a fierce struggle ensued, witnessed by the whole universe. Slowly, the sun's light was eclipsed by the monster. When mankind saw the conflict, they became silent, fearful that the cruel monster might conquer their benefactress. Then they uttered loud cries and began to beat mournfully on their drums till the world was full of sound and clamour. Like all bullies, Uhunro was a real coward at heart, and when he heard the noise of drums and shouting on earth, he was filled with fear, for he thought it was the sound of an advancing army coming to battle him. In an instant, he released his hold on the sun and retreated as fast as he could from the blue realm. The giant toad continues to make his attacks on the sun to this day, and in many countries people call the attacks eclipses. But the ancient Khasi, who saw the great conflict, knew it to be the giant toad trying to devour the sun. And to this day, throughout the whole land, they will beat their drums and make as much noise as possible to help chase him away and see the sun come out again.